You're locked inside a stone chamber beneath the greatest arena the ancient world ever built. Above your head, 50,000 Romans just finished cheering as your husband was torn apart by a lion. Now the crowd is drifting out. The torches in the corridors flicker and fade, and then you hear it. Footsteps, heavy, intentional, coming straight toward you. A shadow fills your doorway. It's the gladiator who survived today's slaughter. He's still drenched in blood, and none of it is his. A guard steps forward, slides a key into the lock, and swings the door open. The gladiator lifts his arm and points directly at you. This isn't a horror movie. This was a regular Tuesday in the Roman Empire. What I'm about to reveal is the part of Roman history no one teaches in school, the state-run machinery of terror that came alive only after the crowds went home. And none of this is speculation. Roman writers recorded it. Archaeologists found the physical evidence carved music into stone deep beneath the Colosseum. If you stay to the end, you'll never look at ancient Rome the same way again. Hollywood has lied to you about gladiators for generations. Spartacus, Gladiator. Those films give you the combat, the rebellion, the heroic bloodshed. What they leave out is the darkness that followed after the arena emptied, when the public spectacle transformed into something music far more disturbing. I'm talking about a system so twisted that modern historians had to invent a new Latin term to describe it: victoria carnalis, the carnal victory. The Romans never used that phrase. They didn't need to. To them, none of this was unusual. It was ordinary, routine, administrative. Because here's what we know for certain. Writers like Martial, Juvenal, and Seneca all describe a world where conquered women were held beneath arenas and handed out as prizes. Literally prizes to victorious gladiators, not metaphorically, not symbolically, but physically delivered like rations to the men who entertained the masses with blood. And this wasn't some rogue practice. This was the Roman government itself, operating with the same cold efficiency it used to build roads and aqueducts. Music, the same civilization that engineered concrete and republican government, also perfected the industrialization of sexual violence. Before we go any deeper, I want you to do something. Look at the like button. If you believe hidden history deserves to be exposed, even the parts that make us uncomfortable, hit that button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Because this story isn't only about Rome, it's about what empires do when no one is watching. Now follow me down into the hypoem to understand what happened in those underground chambers. You have to understand how Rome turned people into inventory. This was not random cruelty. This was a system, cold, strategic, and industrial, and its saint arted the moment Rome conquered new territory. When a legion crushed a rebellion in Gaul, or wiped out a city in Judea, or burned a village in Germania, they didn't simply win a battle, they processed a population. It was a conveyor belt of human misery. Men of military age shipped to mines or sent to die in the arena, children sold to markets across the Mediterranean, and women of childbearing age designated captiva, war prizes belonging to the state. Here's where the nightmare becomes even clearer. Under Roman law, these people were no longer legally human. They were classified as rests, things, objects, property, the same legal category as livestock or a table. A conquered woman had the same rights as a wooden chair. You couldn't commit a crime against her because legally she wasn't a person, she was an item. But Rome didn't rely on law alone to dehumanize. Rome used spectacle. The games were political theater, psychological dominance disguised as entertainment. When the public watched DA capture Germanic warrior fight a lion, they weren't just watching a man die, they were watching the empire demonstrate exactly what happened when anyone dared challenge Rome's authority. And the daytime games, the ones held while elite Romans went home for lunch, those were the most sadistic of all. Historians call them fatal charades. These were mythological reenactments. in which condemned prisoners were forced to act out famous music legends. But the deaths were not staged, they were real. Martial, writing in the 1st century AD, describes these scenes with eerie casualness, like he's reviewing a play. He writes about a prisoner dressed as Orpheus, the legendary musician. They gave him a lyre, released a bear into the arena, and waited. Martial observes with almost theatrical disappointment that this time the music didn't save him. In another passage, and this is truly music disturbing, Martial describes a woman forced to reenact the myth of Paca, who in legend mated with H, a sacred bull. For this prisoner, the myth was made literal. She was attacked by an animal in front of tens of thousands of spectators until she died. Read that again. The Roman state engineered public assaults by animals as lunchtime entertainment. This wasn't the invention of one depraved emperor. This was decades of standardized procedure. Senators brought music their children. Vendors sold snacks. Notices were posted around the city announcing the shows. Martial even praises the arena, saying whatever myth tells us the arena makes real. He meant it as a compliment. This was the environment, the bureaucratic machine of cruelty, where conquered women were also processed and stored as rewards for gladiators. Now let's talk about those men. Gladiators existed in a contradiction Rome never reconciled. They were slaves, legally lower than animals, but also celebrities whose faces appeared in mosaics and whose names were carved into walls by teenage fans. Women of the aristocracy obsess over them. Graffiti in Pompeii calls one fighter the girl's sigh and another the lady's glory. Some wealthy women even sneaked into gladiator barracks for private encounters, bribing guards. Gladiators were so famous that their sweat was scraped off their bodies, mixed with olive oil, and sold as a beauty product. Imagine being so idolized that people buy vials of your perspiration. Music, but that adoration existed alongside fear, deep generational fear, because Rome remembered Spartacus. They remembered that 78 gladiators escaped, raised an army of 70,000 slaves, defeated legion after legion, and almost toppled the empire. Rome crushed that rebellion by crucifying 6,000 survivors along the Aeon Way, one corpse every 40 meters for 200 kilometers. A highway of human punishment. That terror never faded. So how do you control men who are strong, skilled, angry, and admired by the public? You use a mix of brutal punishment and strategic rewards, extra rations, music, prize money, promises of free dom, and something else, something more primal, access to conquered women. The references are scattered because Roman writers didn't think it needed explaining. But when you combine Martial, Juvenal, Cassius, Dio, and later sources, a pattern emerges. After especially impressive victories, especially during major festivals funded by emperors, gladiators received what sources music call privileges of the victor. Modern historians believe those privileges often included access to the women imprisoned beneath the arena. The process seems to have been chillingly organized.